I'm Nancy Kwan. I'm the Director of Digital Marketing here at Bubblebox, and we're a Salesforce consulting partner helping marketers and organizations use Salesforce to bring their ideas to life through technology. So this could be anything from Marketing Cloud, Sales, Service, Interaction Studio, Tableau, Datorama, just to list it through a few. But for today's purpose and topic, I won't be speaking at a platform specific level, as I know a number of attendees are using different systems, just to be clear. Philip, why don't you just quickly introduce yourself to the group, and then we could just jump into the presentation.
Well, thanks a lot, Nancy, for introducing me. So I'm Philip. I'm a co-founder and CEO at SalesWings. SalesWings is the B2B studio for the Salesforce Marketing Cloud. So we enable Salesforce Marketing Cloud customers around the world, from small business all the way up to the enterprise, with best of breed lead management for, in fact, the whole Salesforce platform. So very excited to talk a little bit about cookies. Yummy, we all love cookies. So let's get to it.
So with that, why don't we, Philip, why don't we just jump start into the presentation, if you help kick us off?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, welcome everybody. And we found it would be most helpful to start with a quick introduction to cookies in general. So what is a cookie really? So as you're browsing the web and you're visiting different websites, you've probably noticed that these websites drop what's called cookies on your browsers. And ultimately, it is a way to identify you as a visitor and to store preferences and things that define you as a website visitor. So you can picture it a little bit like a small text file, typically with an identifier, which could be a number. Sometimes there's more information stored in there, or it's just called from a server. Now, what are cookies there for? So typically they are about, for example, preferences. So if you go to a website and you select a language, or you present it with a screen where you can, select the country that you're in, these are preferences that you have that make your web experience more pleasant if the website will remember those. Now, there's other very important areas where we, in fact, couldn't live without cookies. Just think what you're doing every day. You're logging into Gmail, you're logging into LinkedIn. So of course, LinkedIn and Gmail and all those tools, they have to remember that you're logged in and who you are. And that's one other way how cookies are used. But in fact, cookies are a really great thing. And before we continue, an important concept are the types of cookies. And there are, most importantly, first-party cookies, and there are so-called third-party cookies. And let's get started with the first-party cookies. And of course, these are the ones we love as well here at SalesWings, because these are some of the nice cookies. And these are cookies that are placed on your browser on behalf of the company whose website you are visiting. So for example, if you're visiting Bubblebox or SalesWings as a website, the cookies that you're getting that are first-party cookies, by the way, such as those preferences, such as those login credentials, they're owned by the company that you're visiting. That's the only company typically that will be able to leverage these cookies, along with partners that make the website run, for instance. And in fact, first-party cookies are very likely here to stay. So when people talk about the death of cookies and things that will fade away, mostly we are talking about third-party cookies, and even more importantly, how other companies are leveraging these third-party cookies. I know you've brought a great example, Nancy, so I'll let you present that.
Yeah, right, and great descriptor there. So I think many of you guys on this call heard, probably use Amazon. So let's use Amazon as an example, as a first-party cookie use case. So Amazon is looking to acquire more own data about you as a first-time site user, especially if you're a new user to the Amazon website. So one of the things with their use cases, they're trying to gain that initial touch base from you with the moment that you hit their website, and they're asking, like to Philip's point, they're asking you for the permissions to set cookies so that they could start enabling themselves to slowly begin to learn more about you and help Amazon convert data from anonymous to known. So anonymous being when they don't know very much about you, especially if you're a first-time user, to known where you start to collect a little bit more information. So here on the left, on this Amazon example, if you've never been on Amazon, whether it's the desktop or on the mobile phone, you immediately see, of course, the typical, on the top right, you see that sign in if you have an existing account, but then you'll see their main focus point, which is down towards that bottom left. And they're really encouraging people to sign up and set up an account, and they put an emphasis to go, hey, sign up for that to make sure that you have the best experience with them. And if how you're probably wondering that they're actually doing this, Amazon essentially continues to try to build up their first party data by putting you through a journey to set up an account or sign in, just like I just referenced. And now here, for example, as the user creates their account, Amazon begins to gather more first party data that they now owned. In this example, you see that the person is entering their name. You see them also providing their email address. And as they start verifying their accounts, setting up their profile, Amazon is starting to become familiar with you. You also, as the user, as a shopper, you become that curious shopper. Amazon begins to learn about the categories that you like, what resonates to you, maybe what products that you're liking because you're actually saving them for future reference or to see if there's any type of discounts. This is how Amazon is continuing to build up their first party data. And then, of course, from there, one thing that Amazon does as part of building up their first party data and their own data, they also put a focus on ensuring that they're providing their customers with better experience. They want to offer you the relevant content or products that's relevant to you. And Amazon actually has, and I don't know if you guys know this, but they actually have an ad preference area on their app where users can provide consent to be targeted with their ads based off of the data that they've collected. So here you probably see an example of these dog products. I'm a big dog owner for anybody who knows me. So of course, when I started doing these screenshots, it's automatically is suggesting that I put my dog in a UPS outfit. So again, this is how they're starting to collect data. And really, now that I've consented to them to promote specific ads and categories to me, they're now really working on being able to send me personalized content, and that's relevant to me. So now that we know a little bit more about first data, I'm going to turn it back to Philip, who's going to explain more about the third-party data cookie.
Super. Thanks a lot, Nancy. And that was a really great example. Myself, I'm a cat lover, sorry to say, so I would not want to see those dog ads on Amazon. So absolutely, first-party cookies are a great way for companies, in fact, to collect this first-party behavioral data in that moment. So SalesWings does provide a solution like that. But of course, we only want our clients to own that data and to leverage that data. And now going over to the third-party cookies, these are sort of the evil cookies that everybody has been talking about. And it's quite surprising because the original idea of the third-party cookie is a good one. So third-party cookies, in fact, are cookies, again, that are placed on your browser on behalf of another company when you visit a random website. And most famously, these are advertisers like Facebook, like Google. So as you surf across the web, you go to Amazon, and then you go to a blog, and you go to different websites. On every page where Google Analytics or Facebook tracking pixels are installed, Facebook and Google are placing cookies. And what it allows them to do is collect your interests and your profile to then show you personalized ads across the web. Now, of course, one more time, this is actually quite useful, but the problem why these third-party cookies have become are much more under scrutiny now of regulators is there has been a lot of abuse about collecting third-party data. For example, it went so far that at one point, some of you maybe have a smart TV. Smart TVs that were in standby mode would in fact listen to your conversation that you were having with your wife or your kid in your living room and would share that data with advertisers anonymously, yes, but still it would allow them to better understand people and better target their ads. So of course, this is where things get a little bit creepy, and this is also why regulators have imposed restrictions. They have imposed rules on how and when you can leverage such cookies and such data. And along with that, the big tech companies, typically Google with Chrome, Firefox, Microsoft with the Internet Explorer, have already started to make changes in how these third-party cookies are used. And we're expecting them to fade out mid-2023 and definitely be gone end of 2023. But of course, even before that, this data is becoming much less reliable. Okay, Nancy, we have a great little video there as well, if you want to just make a note on that one.
Yeah, so here's an example. I enjoy shopping at Sephora. I'm going to admit it to all you guys. And as you scroll through the website, you'll notice at the bottom of the page that there are 3 advertising content blocks that populate on the Sephora website. So of course, because you know me and you know my love for shopping there, you know that these ads are being targeted to me. And why I say that is because, hey, I'm also the marketer here. I do a lot of market research on LinkedIn. I also do I'm also a consumer, so I do a lot of shopping here. So in these 3 content advertising blocks, you know that they're able to target me, and they're doing a direct one-to-one third-party advertisement media buy on me. And that's mainly because I'm a high user of LinkedIn. So of course you see LinkedIn trying to promote the LinkedIn marketing solution, go figure. And secondly, you see Rakuten being promoted to me as a result of me looking up Kobo readers and books this weekend. So this is an example where through the third-party cookie media buys, companies have been successfully, for the past couple of years, being able to do that direct one-to-one advertising.
Yeah, this is just maybe to add, Nancy, just reminded me of the conversation we've had. Was it a couple of days ago when we were going over the webinar? Is if you imagine, third-party cookies, if this would exist in real life, just picture yourself walking into a store and you have a video in the store that records you from some other company, and they would just look at what you're doing and then show you, ads in their store and all around. I mean, it's pretty creepy. So probably a good change there is going to be good.
I like that analogy, Philip. One of the things when I was really looking in and just to better understand the landscape here, what I've come across was through a global stat report. There was a published report that identified that over 65 web users prefer Chrome. Now this stat is a global stat. So I know because there's different people on this call and you're in different regions globally, you could actually go to that website. If you just look up stats counter for global stat, you could actually just do a quick double check to see what the impact is for your specific region. If you are whether it's you're targeting it for the region or if you're targeting for certain countries, you could actually break it down that way. But essentially here, it's signaling to us as a marketer that there is going to be a huge impact on data, the data gathering via the Google Chrome's third-party cookies elimination. So when I was looking into, one of the things I always like to say is ask yourself, what percentage of third-party data are you currently using in your organization to drive revenue? I think that's a very important question. Ask yourself that, ask your team that. And I would love to, for you guys to use that conversation, use that question to really start that discovery and start the conversation with your executive teams, with your leaders, with your team members, to start putting a plan in place for the upcoming change. Now, some of us are probably going to go, well, how do I get people to understand the severity, the significance to this change that's going to happen to our business? I myself as a marketer may know it, but maybe my peers do not. So what I want to do is use an example. So to really explain the severity of the impact, just envision, just take a moment here and think about big brand companies like Nike and Under Armour. And also think about automotive, like just think about the Audis, the BMWs, the Honda, the Toyotas. We see those ads and those media buys constantly, all the time. I see it on a regular basis every day, probably all through the day. All of those organizations all have significant third-party ad spend budgets. They are very, very large and significant. Now imagine that change in their attribution once this gets rolled out. and reflect back on your own channels. So are your third-party ad spends driving a majority of your revenue? If you were just saying yes, then definitely spend that time to assess and re-strategize. For those who just said, hey, I'm unsure how to even bring awareness to why it's important, this is, I always like to use data and facts and studies to prove the impact. So Google, when they made the decision and they announced that they were going to release this elimination, Google released an experiment and they essentially released the results of the experiment. So what they did was they actually had a control group of brands, and also they had a test group of brands that used third-party data to advertise and to drive revenue. When they made the third-party data cookie obsolete, those test group actually had an average of 52% revenue loss without the cookies. If you want to read more about it, just do a quick Google on this study. I think they title it Disabling Third-Party Cookies that they actually published. But it really made myself as a marketer, and even in conversation with Philip, to go, wow, if you have an ad channel that's driving that much revenue, how do you tell the story to an executive? How do you buy the understanding, get everyone bought in that we do have to put a plan in place to make sure that we either make up for revenues or find new strategies to acquire new customers and new ways of growing. So why isn't this easy to change to another channel? So I'm going to turn this back to Philip. Philip, why don't you walk us through the common challenges that marketers typically face?
Yeah, will do with pleasure. So thanks a lot. So these are pretty impressive numbers. And what we wanted to do in this slide is just mention some of the questions maybe you have in your head right now, and that we know a lot of marketers are thinking about. So number one, again, what about all my retargeting ads? What about this ability to reach people across channels, with data that's so practically available to us to personalize. Now, the good news is retargeting and data will not go away. There are absolutely initiatives to be able to share data with advertisers. It's going to be much more controlled. It's going to be it's not going to happen without consent of you and in your case your customers. But ultimately, it comes down to juggling privacy concerns of your customers with personalization. And that's really difficult because I've seen a recent study on the Adobe website which said 80% of people, and I'm going to count myself to that group, 80% of people prefer to buy from brands that speak to them and their unique needs and their unique profile, that make the experience pleasant and special for myself. So advertising is not going to go away, and personalization absolutely will not go away, and we even feel it's going to get much stronger, and we will talk about that in just a minute. But other questions are, of course, where can I find new data sources? So third-party cookies and third-party data, it's really about the data, and there are other ways to leverage data that you probably already have. Maybe you're just ignoring it a tiny bit. And a big one, of course, are these regulatory changes that we're going to face. And there's quite a lot of risks linked to that. Nancy, maybe you can just show us some of these possible risks associated with not only regulations, but this change in third-party cookie handling.
Yeah, for sure. So risk of not doing anything or not taking action to adapt to the changes that Google is implementing. Philip and I, we both of us, I think, came to agreement on this when we were connecting on this. Is if you don't do anything, you don't action on it, your competitors will get ahead of you, especially if they begin to build out their first-party data strategy. Another one is customers. We all know, we see this in many reports. Customers want personalized experience. So how do you build personalized experience when you don't know your customers? Especially if you don't know how you should be interacting with them, whether it's through a journey, whether it's through the email channel, whether it's through the website. The other piece that becomes a risk is all around, you may actually, as the brand, you may indirectly increase the amount of spam and unwanted ads. And this comes back to your ability with third-party cookies being eliminated, what's going to happen is that the ads will no longer be relevant to me. So that one-to-one ability to advertise that we saw in that Sephora example, you will lose that. So what happens is if we go down that path, you're now starting to market more at a cluster level, a very large group of people. And what happens is that you're probably going to be targeting people that don't want your product. You're actually now giving them a negative experience because at that time they're not ready to interact with you. Maybe they don't even, that's not even the product that they want, but now you're that brand that just keeps getting in front of them. So to them, they view your brand as spam, and this is not something that we want. The other thing is the last three bullets here, it's actually all connected. So connects to the comment of what Philip said about regulations. So this relates to that whole data and privacy compliancy. So I know in the US, I know there's a couple people that logged on here that are from the States. I know in the US, there are states that are about to announce their data protection act. So it'd be good to pay attention to the changes that are coming up and to try to get ahead of it. I also know there's a couple people here that signed on, they're from Canada. The Canadians here know we all have to follow the CASO regulations. And the impact upon an organization that breaches that, the violations in that regulatory has penalties of up to over $10 million per violation for an organization. Or it's actually $1 million per violation for an individual. Whereas that's a huge significant financial penalty for any organization. I know there's a couple people here from Europe. On the EU side, with the GDPR, so the General Data Protection Regulations, that authority could actually impose fines of up to 4% of your revenue and of your overall financial gains, and or up to, I think it's about like a 20 million pounds penalty. So when I kind of compact that as a marketer, this is what I always tell to my teams. One thing I always say to my teams as a marketer is, I don't want to be that marketer that single-handedly bankrupts the company or creates the negative branding in the market. I know that seems a bit harsh and a bit dramatic, but I hope that there's some of you guys on this call that resonates, because at the end of the day, you know, these are our careers, this is our profession, and we don't want to have those types of impacts to our businesses that we are marketing. Right, Philip?
Oh no, we don't. We absolutely don't. I remember when GDPR was coming closer in the European Union. I think maybe just to also calm everybody a little bit down, these laws are so complex that the regulators and those that going after the companies that ignore them and not take them serious, they know that, and in fact there has been quite a delay to allow companies to slowly adapt to it. And they're very complex, even for those who wrote those laws, because in fact, if you think about the web, you can make a local law in Canada, you can make a local law in Japan, or I know Brazil has a very strict one. People visit websites all the time from all over the world. And so how do you comply with that as a business? So when GDPR came out in the beginning, we've had a range of large websites, including, I believe it was either the New York Times or Wall Street Journal, that would block visitors from Europe because they did not exactly know what to do, what to respect. So it is quite a jungle. The positive thing, and of course, so because SalesWings, does also collect behavioral data on websites, we go through these laws and we look at them, and there's quite a lot of similarities amongst them. I think is the important thing. And if you have a small business or a medium-sized business versus a large corporation, stock market listed, so it does take that into consideration as well. And it is absolutely doable, but it is a topic you need to pay attention to. And again, if you go from this kind of ruthless spamming towards a personal approach to helping and speaking to your audience, you will have a range of benefits too. And now you have a great slide. I love this one.
Yeah, so it's always about how do we move forward, right? So I always like quotes. So this quote is from Mark Cuban, and if you don't know him, he's an owner of the Dallas Mavericks, it's an NBA team. But what I've always enjoyed was watching him on Shark Tank. Don't know how many of you guys watched that show, and he was known for this quote: "Because if you were prepared and you know what it takes, it's not a risk." So think about that list that we just walked through. It's not a list, and you just have to figure out how to get there. And there's always a way to get there. So with that, Philip and I are going to walk through 5 ways to move forward. So Philip, how about you kickstart us with one way that the team here and the crew here could take away?
Yes, for sure. And so let's talk about first party data for a moment. And this is very dear to us, of course, here at SalesWings, because again, SalesWings is a company that allows you to collect more first party data. First party data is data that you own. So it's data that you have either collected yourself or that clients and consumers and leads have given to you and that you're allowed to use. And this is typically, at least at the moment of collection, highly accurate and reliable data that you can use to create great marketing experiences and timely sales engagements, and really connect with the people that you want to do business with. So what kind of first party data is there? So you have here the phone icon. So of course you have your salespeople. They're speaking all the time with your customers. They can ask the right questions. They can store this information in your CRM system. CRM system, of course, is one single or is one source of truth as of right now. And then there's other information. So think about your accounting data, purchase history, preferences there of your existing customers, marketing cloud or other marketing platforms allow you to collect data, whether it's on web forms, whether it's with tools like polls, etc. And then of course you have web behavioral data. What are the areas on the website that your website visitors are interested in? And if we go up to larger companies, you have mentioned Nike before. Of course, Nike is a fantastic brand that creates, great connections with its buyers or consumers. They go one step further. So they have, for example, applications such as Apple Watch applications that gather information about the runs and the exercise that their users are doing, and then the users of these apps are giving consent that Nike is able to use that, and then this really allows a company to fully and truly understand what a lead is all about or what a consumer really wants. And we can see this growing importance of first party data in a range of ways. And I think an important one is the whole trend of CDP. I know today we're not going to talk a lot about technologies, but you probably or may have heard about so-called customer data platforms. And the goal of customer data platforms is, in fact, to unify all these data sources and have them speak to each other. So maybe you remember in the old times, you had a phone and then you had maybe some PDA and you had a computer and you tried to synchronize the contacts and you ended up with 25 duplicates. And so gathering such data at scale can become rather complex. So this is where CDPs are going to be great. And there's a lot of investments going into CDPs. But make sure you do develop a strategy to source, centralize, and leverage your first party data. And moving forward, of course, collect more of that data with the consent of your consumers. And we have one small example here that we've built on our website. So here's a website bot. Feeling lucky today. It's a robot. So absolutely feeling lucky every day, even though I'm not every day. But well, here, a poll, a contest. Great way to collect some data. Want to enter into the contest? Well, we got a few questions for you. Here we have, job title is a great way to understand the priorities and the needs of a specific person, but you can ask all kinds of things, right? So this is just one example. Think about how you can collect more information, and because this first-party data it's great data, it's reliable, and it's definitely one way to prepare for this future. Yeah, back to you, Nancy.
Yeah, so of course, so just to continue along, so as you heard what I said on the previous risk side, regulations to CASO and GDPR and the new data protection and privacy regulations being rolled out in the US, it's best practice to ensure that you have that profile and or preference centers that essentially enable you to adhere to the ever-changing regulations. But at the same time, it helps you build up your first-party data. So this usually includes knowing what your users' preferences are when it comes to opting in and out, and knowing exactly when, where, and what they did. So if the case that you unfortunately do get challenged by the regulators, knock on wood that you don't, you will at least have that information ready at hand in your CRM for a quick glance, and anybody in your organization would be able to have access to it. The other thing that the preference centers and profile centers enable you to do is really truly provide value and content to your audience. So just think back to that example using Amazon at the beginning, where they were setting up the profiles, they were asking the questions to gather the categories that were relevant to you. They were actually reaching out and asking, what type of ad preference options do you want to receive, so that they can still continue to work with to promote the information in the content that would be relevant to you. As a marketer, what I like to do is view it as an opportunity to ensure that we continue to provide valuable content. So if you see, for example, if you have this preference center set up and you see a high unsubscribe rate come through, upon that unsubscribe journey, when people are unsubscribing, as the marketer, make that one last ditch effort to try to find out why are they unsubscribing. Ask those questions. Don't just leave it to be like, okay, they've unsubscribed, they probably don't care about what we have to say. It could just be that we're not presenting to them information that's actually valuable for them to read or engage with. When you're starting to do and ask your audience, why are they unsubscribing, and you're trying to determine what type of questions to ask them, make sure that the questions that you're setting up are actionable by your organization. And to make sure that there is going to be change, I'd highly encourage you guys to assign a business owner and a business owner that's accountable for it, and so that they could continue to drive that change forward and be able to make a positive change for the consumer. Because down the road, there are other ways to try to get people to opt back in. So on this screen here, you just see that example of a preference setter that we currently use. And then in the second smaller box here, that's called subscriber history. If you ever get the regulators asking, well, prove to me, when did somebody opt in, or when did somebody opt out, or when did they opt back in, you have a clear log of it in your CRM. So that's what that visual is providing. So you've done all that. You're now an organization. You set up your profile accounts. You set up your preference centers. You're probably going, great. What's next? What do I do after this fact? As a marketer, we know it's important that your key differentiator, that your key differentiator, because that's what truly makes you unique as a brand, especially if you're in a competitive market. So I always like to run this with not only my marketing teams, but I also like to ask my peers. And I always encourage people to go, hey, ask that question. If you guys had to identify for your business and your organization, you each had to individually write down, what are the top 3 differentiators for our business? Encourage everybody to write those down, and then eventually share it with each other to see if they actually align. More times than none, what usually is identified is that your 3 core differentiators aren't the same, which drives an interesting conversation amongst your organization. Right away, compare that to your top competitors. Now, keep in mind the word differentiator. So you're compared to your competitors, and they're saying the exact same thing as you are. Then are you truly differentiating your products against your competitive market? So this is one thing, an exercise I'd really, really like to do. It challenges us to go, hey, how are we positioning ourselves in the market? And do we really have a true value prop to it? And where I'm going with that is when there isn't that consistent differentiator, there usually becomes a disconnect in alignment in your messaging. And a lot of the times is because, let's be honest, as the marketers, sometimes we don't know. We could go out and have a lot of organizations do surveys, but what is even better is if you are learning from your customers and your audiences directly and have them tell you what is important to them, what do they perceive as a value differentiator. And this is where, because we don't know what our customers are looking at, and when we don't have a system that's available to us, we don't know what customers are looking at. We have a vague idea of what they're clicking on, like we might be looking using UTMs, but the information isn't being collected in a really easy area for us to review, for us to analyze, for us to really build that case to put forth, to have certain conversations, maybe with the broader organization, to why we might need to reposition the messaging. So here, this is what I'm going to do here. I'm just going to push play on this piece here. And what I want to call out just before I move forward is there are tools that can connect to different CRMs that enable anyone in the organization to see what the customer is interacting. So this example I have here, we have the ability to see the customer's intent. So we have the opportunity to see what pages are they seeing and visiting on our website, the number of times that they're seeing it. It also tells us here, you'll see towards the bottom here, the forms that the person is actually completing, what they're filling out, where they're filling it out. And as we continue to scroll down, you also see an area called email activity. This I love as a marketer because you can actually see what emails are being opened, but not only just in one business area. You could see this across all business areas, from marketing, sales, or service. And it really also shows the time when it was done, when it was clicked, what are the web pages that are viewed, what is that date history. The thing as a marketer that I really, really, truly love about this is I no longer have people coming up to me every 1 to 2 minutes asking where a potential lead or a potential customer is coming from, what they're reading. It's all in that one central view of what's made available for anybody in the organization to see. But now when I take it back, when I come back to that, hey, how do we really have meaningful conversations about the value differentiators? How do I put together a content strategy to drive engagement? Well, when you have all this information in the CRM, you have the ability to run a report. And when you run that report, you have the ability to identify, what are the core unique values based off the content that users are interacting with and the data that's collected. The great thing is now we have data and results that really prove why we should position the messaging a certain way, or why we should build out and set up a content strategy a certain way. The one thing I like to point out, and this is where I like to geek out. So this is the cool thing about all this that I just love. You could actually leverage this. I don't know if many of you guys have heard of a model called RFV. This is the recency, frequency, and volumes model. This is usually used by a lot of publishers, a lot of media companies, and it really starts helping you build out your content strategy using the data collected from your customers directly. Because now, when you know exactly what content pieces are hitting, what are the next pages that the person is actually viewing, you have the ability as a marketer to become hyper-focused and create the messaging that resonates to similar audiences, and then use that behavior to create all the additional nurture journeys. So whether that's from a continuing pushing them through a cart abandonment journey, or maybe it's somebody that's created an account, now they've become a full customer. How do you create that welcome and onboarding journey? But to ensure that you're creating that stickiness, you now see a trend of what are the content that resonates the most, and what are the trends and content that keeps bringing these people back. So this information, I hope, will help inform essentially the different channels, like personalized emails or personalized web interactions where historical data may not have been clear. I could go on for hours on this piece, but that's one thing that I really, really like about, knowing as a marketer, we should really be focusing on what those differentiators are, having the data, and then pushing it through to build a stronger content strategy that truly resonates with our customers. And then from there, we also know that customers want more personalized experiences. We touched on this a couple minutes ago. And you can leverage marketing automation tools, including machine learning and web personalization tools to deliver personal content. And essentially, this sets you up to that lead nurture campaign that will resonate to them. And the great thing with this is you have the ability to encourage the next best action for your customers. This takes that mystery away. It enables you to interact with them, know exactly what they want. And I think the best thing to this is you start getting the data to go, hey, this is most likely the step that this individual will take. You start promoting that personalization, whether it's through the email channel, website, through personalization. And the cool thing with all this is you begin to have the ability through that machine learning and through the automation to start promoting this in real time, as opposed to these longer sprints of trying to build your campaign and then 3 months later retarget them. This all happens instantaneously. So that's, I know that's a lot there. The other piece, I'm going to pass this on to the last opportunity to consider, and Philip's going to walk us through this one. Philip, do you want to take it away on this piece?
Yeah, absolutely. These are all super important and interesting points. And maybe just to summarize, one of the things that I take away from this is it all starts with the data that you have. And this is why this first point also about first party data, data that you have available, is so crucial. Meaningful data allows you to understand your customers and understand their priorities, and then make this engagement with your leads or subscribers, whatever it is, truly unique. Second party data, in fact, is a super powerful type of data, and it's very straightforward. It is data that you share with other companies, friends, pretty much. So you see a lot of companies, you go to a store and you have, co-branding of, I don't know, maybe it's Disney with Kellogg's, and here and there in the consumer side, and on the B2B side, well, you can do all kinds of collaborations together with companies. And here you see the Bubblebox and the SalesWings logo. Of course, we felt we can bring a lot of value to our audiences because they have a lot in common. So we've teamed up and we've organized an event that, of course, we hope you're enjoying and you enjoyed. That allows to create an experience that is personal and allows to then, in this situation, invite our very similar type of people that we like to work with. Another great idea that we use a lot in software as a service is co-marketing around content, such as articles. So if you have obviously not a competitor, but maybe you have somebody in your space that offers service to the same audience, why not do a piece of content, subject matter expertise that you both share in a white paper, and then create a joint marketing campaign, email combined with possibly some ads, some landing pages, personal outreach over email or whatever you can think of, and then have a joint landing page where the people that want to access this kind of content will give you their consent to share whatever information you're asking with both you and the other company. So second party data, by the way, this is not linked to second party cookies. There really is no such thing as second party cookies. Here we're talking really about second party data. So this is another great way, in fact, to create value for your audience. Point here, Nancy, that I forgot.
Yeah, no worries. I think the only thing that I just want you guys to keep in mind, because there's always alternatives, right? So when it comes to that second party data, take a look. Try exploring, are there other ways to try to unify all the IDs that exist right now? So there are partners out there. The ones that kind of come to top of my mind are like Trade Desk Unified ID 2.0. they have the ability to take digital IDs using emails to try to combine and help you build up your second party data. There's other ones like LiveRamp, where they're continuing to work on developing these cookieless IDs. And it helps marketers and organizations build up a pool across, the different digital ecosystems that exist. Some of you guys may have heard of things for the digital ecosystems called Authentic Traffic Solutions, or ATS. Essentially, that enables you to have a two-way value exchange between brands and different publishers that are out there. Because let's be honest, like, of course, there's a lot of media ad publishers out there. They recognize this change is happening. They're also exploring to find ways to address these issues that people are coming across with this removal of third-party data. So I just want to make sure there are different options that help you not only just build up your first-party data, but also help you continue to grow the second-party data that you might want to consider exploring as well. Yeah, so and with that, to Philip's point, we'll just quickly jump over to the next slide just to close out this session. With this one here, if we were to give you 3 quick points to take away, the main one is really just doing that health check assessment with your existing ecosystem to better understand what that impact is. Start having those conversations with your teams, and also educating your peer groups to the potential impacts that are going to come between now and 2023 when Google implements the change. And then from there, take a look at prioritizing some of the potential strategies that we had recommended over the past couple of slides to see how you could continue to move forward. And at the end of the day, make sure that you're focusing on rolling out the changes. So I know Philip and I, we could pretty much geek out on this for hours. If there's anything that you guys have additional questions on, by all means, don't be shy. Feel free to reach out to either of us, and we're more than happy to answer any of the questions.